The Collapse video series is for entertainment purposes only. Do not commit acts of violence. Two weeks since the grid went down. In rural parts of the country that are not farming communities, a massive gardening initiative is underway. People who have never gardened before are planting for the first time. People who have gardened before are planting every available space. There are not nearly enough seeds to meet the need. Gardening stores have enough seeds to meet the regular demand by the townspeople who garden, but not enough seeds to feed the entire town. The seeds are rationed as fairly as possible, but it is decided that the people who know what they are doing should get more seeds so that they won't be wasted. The experienced gardeners are paired with novices who will help garden and get a portion of the crop. People with chickens and ducks agree to only harvest half the eggs so that the rest can hatch. The baby chicks are rationed. Only a few people have been raising rabbits for meat. Their litters are commandeered and rationed, giving families a starter breeding pair. Rural areas are full of the sound of hammers as people build chicken coops and rabbit pens. Rabbits take 12 weeks to grow large enough to butcher and 6 months before they can breed. Chickens and duck eggs take 3 to 4 weeks to hatch and another 8 weeks to grow large enough to butcher. They take 6 months before they can start laying eggs. Calorie crops like potatoes and corn need about 10 to 20 weeks before they have a crop that can be picked and eaten. It will be at least 10 to 12 weeks before the town can grow enough crops and raise enough farm animals to feed themselves. Those who survive the next 3 months might make it through, but surviving that time is not a certainty. Hunting and fishing parties are formed. However, there isn't enough game to support the population for very long. In New Hampshire, for example, a state with low population density and plenty of deer hunting, the human population is about 1 million, while the total deer population is only about 100,000. Still, hunting and fishing may barely get them through while waiting for the gardens to grow and chickens and rabbits to reach maturity. Even with the game and fish, people in the rural areas are consuming far fewer calories than usual. They are frequently truly hungry for the first time in their lives. The hunger makes them irritable and quick-tempered. Arguments flare, especially with the newcomers who showed up in the last 2 weeks before the town was closed to more arrivals. The newcomers feel that they have to work twice as hard in order to justify their right to stay. In the suburbs, families, now completely out of food and gas, are preparing to set out on foot. In regional emergencies, people normally go stay with family or go to other familiar places. They normally do not venture into unfamiliar territory when they are at their most vulnerable. Hunger causes people to do things they wouldn't normally do. The local suburb is out of food. They either leave and try to find food, or they stay and die. There are those who choose the latter, but most decide to leave. They bring with them the typhoid fever that has been plaguing the community. Their migration with the disease ensures its spread. The Army, Navy, and Air Force have been guarding the perimeter of the country against attack, commandeering supplies, and guarding the federal government. Just as the governors realized they had to get the families of the National Guard to safety in order to ensure loyalty, federal officials know that the military will begin defecting if they think their families are in mortal danger. Unlike the National Guard, where soldiers are deployed in the states where they reside and their families are therefore nearby, the families of federal military are scattered throughout the country. Retrieving spouses, children, moms, and dads from their homes and moving them to stocked, guarded military bases will take time and resources. The effort does not go unappreciated. loyalty in the ranks is strengthened immeasurably. In the rural South, racial tensions mount as people from black areas migrate into white areas, perceiving that they will have more. Having no place to stay, they squat in places the whites disapprove of. The South, which is about 20% black and 16% Latino, is not nearly as racist as they are often portrayed in movies and television. For the most part, people get along. However, a massive disaster and resulting scarcity of essentials will magnify and spread any existing tensions. The towns are demographically separated, with some counties having an overwhelming majority of blacks and others being predominantly white. This pre-existing geographic separation hinders cross-racial cooperation. The increasing racial tensions are keenly felt, but for the moment they are mostly unspoken. In the poorer nations of Africa, Mozambique, Liberia, Libya, Algeria, etc., there have been no shipments of food for a week. International aid from the US and Canada stopped 2 weeks ago. The Protector of Europe has decided that aid will cease as the people of Europe need the food for themselves. These countries of Africa normally import 25% to 75% of their food. Food riots have started. What the people had at the time of the collapse has run out, and everyone knows no more is coming. The migration routes that existed before the collapse are now experiencing a marked increase in volume as starving migrants from Africa make their way to Europe. The Protector is made aware of the substantial uptick in illegal migration from Africa. He declares that until the emergency is over, Europe will not be accepting additional refugees. A proper European military has not yet been created, but the Protector works with the individual countries to have their military guard the coasts and land borders to put a full stop to immigration. There are murmurs among certain segments of the population that the massive influx of immigrants in recent years was a way for the elites to solidify power and create one European government. Now that it's happened, the elites have no need to bring in more immigrants. They accuse the elites of exploiting immigrants for power and now turning their backs on those immigrants. In a press conference, a reporter asks the Protector about this theory. He denies it vehemently. The next day, the same reporter who challenged the Protector is found to have made several social media posts years earlier that are now being construed as racist. It is not known who dug up the old social media posts, and it's questionable as to whether they are actually racist or not. But she is nonetheless publicly discredited and fired. The Protector announces that due to time constraints in these difficult times, he will no longer be able to attend press conferences. China tells its citizens who own farmland in Australia to deliver the proceeds of the farms to the government immediately in order to ensure the food security of the nation. This includes any stored foodstuffs in warehouses or factories in Australia. Citizens of mainland China and Hong Kong together are the largest foreign owners of Australian farmland. They only own about 2.6% of the farmland, but the people of Australia have been disturbed by the strong increase in Chinese purchases of Australian farmland over the past decade. The agricultural products were designated for consumption in China anyway. The directive only made the goods government property instead of private property. They were never going to be consumed by the people of Australia. Nonetheless, people who are already nervous about the sudden increase in food prices and the collapsed global economy see the directive from the Chinese government as an effort to take food away from the people of Australia. The people pressure the government to put a temporary moratorium on any exports of food until the emergency is over, whenever that is. or possibly seize the Chinese farms altogether. Britain, which is no longer a member of the European Union, has benefited from some of the economic policies of the Protector. British banks borrowed from the European Central Bank to stay afloat. After the Protector began subsidizing gasoline, the British Prime Minister began doing the same, though Britain has the advantage of being able to increase its own oil production in the North Sea. Britain has not benefited from the Protector's negotiation with Asian businesses to purchase a large volume of goods and parts at a deep discount. Layoffs at businesses in Britain actually increased after the Protector achieved that deal, because not only do the businesses not get the discounted goods, they are in competition with European businesses that did. Pro-European Union activists, which represent a large minority of the population, are demanding a return to the EU. The nations of the Middle East had been eyeing Israel as soon as the United States military retreated home. An open attack would be imprudent. Israel is heavily armed and is rumored to have nuclear weapons. Rather than attack the nation directly, they begin a blockade of any food to Israel. They never attack Israeli ships, but they do attack any freighter with food headed for Israel. Operatives within the nation stop bombing military targets and instead bomb agricultural equipment. They set crops on fire. They kill farm animals. The plan is to run Israel out of food. If you would like to see an ad-free version of these videos, go to my BitChute or Brighteon page. Even with the ads, there is not nearly enough revenue to support continued production of the series. Please consider supporting me on Subscribestar or click on the PayPal link in the description.